some very gray walls. Great for sound, maybe not for the soul.
Right. Now, here's the question. Is this room helping you think, or is it actively holding your brain back?
That is the big question, isn't it? And it's not just about, aesthetics. It's not about whether a room looks good.
It's about biology.
It's about biology, exactly.
And that's where we're diving in today, the world of neuroarchitecture. And if that sounds like some kind of sci-fi buzzword, well, it kind of is. But it's also a very real field.
It is. It's the collision of neuroscience and architecture. For a long time, architects designed for the eyes. Neuroarchitecture flips that. It asks, how does this building, this room, physically change your behavior, your cognition, your emotions?
And to get our heads around it, we are looking at a systematic review from 2023. It's by Rehana Raisi and colleagues. The title is a bit of a mouthful, Exploring Neuroarchitecture's Influence on Indoor Learning Space Design.
And systematic review is the key phrase there. This isn't just one person's opinion. These researchers went out and they scraped the barrel of scientific literature. They started with a pool of nearly 3,000 papers.
3,000, wow.
3,000 studies on buildings and brains. But here's where it gets interesting. Out of those 3,000, guess how many were rigorous enough to make it into their final analysis?
I have a feeling you're going to tell me it's a very small number.
It's tiny, 10. Just 10 studies made the cut.
10, so 2,990 studies got tossed out. Why?
Because the researchers were on a very specific mission. See, neuroarchitecture has been pretty big in healthcare, designing hospitals to lower patient stress, that kind of thing.
Right, we know that works.
We know that works. But they wanted to see if it works for learning. They wanted to know if a classroom can actually, make you smarter. So they set a really high bar for evidence.
Okay, so what was the bar?
They didn't want studies that just asked students, hey, do you like this room? Because people are terrible judges of what's actually good for them. They filtered out anything that didn't use hard neurophysiological tools. If there wasn't a brain scan or a heart rate monitor involved, it was out.
So we're moving from feelings to actual physiological data.
That is the whole story here. It's the shift from the old way of research to the new way.
Okay, let's unpack that.
Yeah.
The old way was, just asking people questions?
Subjective questionnaires, yeah. Or observation. A researcher sits in the back of the classroom and, if you're looking at the teacher, they mark down paying attention.
But I could be staring right at someone and be thinking about lunch.
Precisely. It's surface level. Or you ask a student, did you feel focused? And maybe they felt focused, but their actual retention was garbage. The new way stops asking the person and starts asking the body.
It's like a lie detector test for the room.
In a way, yeah. And the review highlights a huge surge in using these objective tools. The heavyweight champion, appearing in 7 of the 10 studies, is EEG.
Electroencephalography. That's the swimming cap with all the wires on it. Right?
That's the one. You put a cap with electrodes on the scalp, and it measures the brain's electrical activity in real time. You can literally see when the brain waves associated with relaxation dip and the waves for concentration spike. You don't have to ask. The graph tells you.
But they're not just looking at the brain, are they? The review mentioned a multimodal approach.
Yeah, this is a trend that really picked up around 2021. Researchers realized, and this is shocking, I know, that the brain is connected to the body.
So they started using other sensors, like heart rate monitors.
Heart rate, yes, but also sensors for skin conductance.
Skin conductance. That's sweating.
Micro-sweating, basically. It's a classic sign of arousal or stress. Your skin conductivity changes before you even consciously realize you're uncomfortable. They also tracked body temperature.
So you're triangulating the data.
Exactly. If the EEG says you're focused, but your heart rate is through the roof, maybe you're not learning, maybe you're panicked, you get a whole picture of the biological cost of being in that room.
It's incredible. We think of a room as just this passive container, but this suggests it's actively pushing buttons on our biological dashboard the whole time.
It is. The room is an active participant in your cognitive process.
Okay, so we have the high-tech tools, we have the 10 best studies. I want the payoff. What did they find? Because this is the part where we all figure out how to hack our own workspaces.
Let's start with the most obvious one, color.
I feel like color psychology can be a bit eye-rolly, paint the room pink to suppress anger. It sounds like a horoscope.
And a lot of it is pop science nonsense, yeah. But this review looked at the data. One study they cited found some really specific things. First, intensity. Across the board, pale colors were ranked way higher for creating a relaxing, calming ambience than vivid colors.
Okay, so pastels to chill out.
Yeah.
But for learning, you don't necessarily want to be chill. You want to be sharp.
And that is the crucial distinction. The study found that cold hues, so blues and greens, improved attention and memory performance much more than warm hues like reds and oranges.
So red might pump you up, but it doesn't help you remember things.
It's about the arousal curve. Warm colors increase arousal, right? But too much arousal and your brain just scatters, you get overstimulated. Cool colors seem to hit that sweet spot where you're alert, but you're not stressed.
Okay, so blue walls for the study. Got it. What about windows? I've always heard that a window is just a distraction.
The data actually says the opposite, but there's a catch. It depends on what you're looking at. The review cites a study by Lai and Sullivan, and it's a big one. They found that windows with views of green landscapes, trees, grass, nature, significantly helped alleviate stress and mental fatigue.
Ah, the biophilia idea. That we're hardwired to calm down when we see nature.
It's more than just calming down. It's called attention restoration. The theory is that focusing on a spreadsheet, that takes directed attention, and that's like a battery that drains. Looking at nature engages involuntary attention. It's effortless, and it lets that directed attention battery recharge.
So looking at a squirrel is actually a productivity hack.
In microdoses, yes, but here's the catch. Another study found that the architecture of the window itself matters. Specifically, the width mattered.
Size matters.
It really does. Wider windows had a positive impact on cognitive performance. A little tiny porthole just didn't cut it. You need that sense of openness.
So if I'm in a basement office with a tiny slit of a window, I'm out of luck.
You're probably not getting the benefit now.
Okay, speaking of the shape of the room, let's talk about space and geometry. This part of the review really surprised me.
It's fascinating, right? We think of a room as a box, but they're measuring things like classroom width and ceiling height as variables that affect attention.
And what did they find?
One of the most specific findings was about imagery. They found that having images of geometric shapes, so ordered, structured patterns, was linked to better sustained attention.
That seems weird. I would think a poster of geometric shapes would just be boring.
But for your brain, sometimes boring means safe. If an environment is chaotic and cluttered, your brain has to spend energy processing all that chaos. Geometric patterns are predictable. That predictability frees up cognitive resources to focus on the actual task.
So we want blue walls, wide windows looking at trees, and maybe some geometric art.
You're building the perfect neuroclassroom. But there's one more factor, and it is the invisible killer of productivity.
Temperature.
Thermal comfort. The data on this is stark. We all know we don't like being too hot or too cold. But it's not just a comfort issue, it's a functional issue.
Your brain actually stops working as well.
They measured it with EEG. When the room was too warm, they saw the concentration signals in the brain just drop off a cliff.
So if you're in a stuffy meeting room, you're not just uncomfortable. You are, statistically speaking, dumber in that moment.
Your processing speed slows, your working memory shrinks. Your body is fighting to regulate its temperature, so there's no energy left for the hard stuff.
It's amazing. We'll spend millions on a new school building and then cheap out on the HVAC system, and we're basically sabotaging the whole project.
That's the black box problem. We focus on the curriculum, but ignore the container it all happens in.
Okay, so there's a twist in this review that I found really interesting. It's about how they're doing these studies. Because building a fake classroom, painting it blue, then repainting it red, that seems slow and expensive.
Incredibly expensive, which is why the review identified a massive trend toward using virtual reality.
VR classrooms.
Exactly. The shift from physical labs to digital labs. And the reason is one word: control.
Explain that.
Imagine a real school. You've got noise from the hallway, a cloud covers the sun, and the light changes, the AC kicks on. Those are all confounding variables. They mess up your data.
Reality's messy.
Reality is messy, but in VR, you control everything. You can change the classroom width with a mouse click. You can make sure every single participant sees the exact same shade of blue. It's a scientist's dream.
Sounds perfect. Isolate the variable, test it.
Ideally, yes.
But
there's always a but.
the uncanny valley.
Right. Because VR is cool, but it doesn't feel real.
Exactly. And the review points this out. VR is great for visual and auditory stuff. But what's missing? The smell of the room, the tactile feel of the desk, the air movement.
The temperature we just talked about.
Exactly. You can't simulate a stuffy room in a headset, so you run into this problem of ecological validity. If my brain reacts to a virtual blue wall, can we be 100% sure it reacts the same way to a real one? Because on some level, the brain knows it's a simulation.
It knows. The biological reaction might be dampened. We might be designing classrooms based on how people react to video games, not reality.
Which leads us perfectly into the critical analysis. Because for all these cool findings, the authors found some serious problems with the current state of the science.
Oh, yeah. It's a young field. It has growing pains. The biggest one is what I call the black box of the environment.
This goes back to the lack of data, right?
It does. The reviewers found a shocking lack of standardization. Even in these top 10 studies, the researchers often failed to report basic environmental data.
Like what?
Like, what was the temperature in the room during the test? What was the humidity? What were the lighting levels?
Wait, so they're studying how a room affects the brain, but they don't write down how hot the room is.
In many cases, no. They might be so focused on the wall color. But if a student did poorly in the red room, was it the red walls? Or was it just 85 degrees in there that day?
And without that data, you can't know.
You can't separate the variables. It muddies the water completely.
Then there's the issue of who they're studying. Who are the guinea pigs in these experiments?
University students, almost exclusively.
A classic 18 to 23-year-old.
Which, it makes sense. They're on campus. They're easy to recruit. But a university student's brain is basically fully developed.
Right. A 7-year-old in first grade has a completely different brain structure. It's developing so fast, their attention is different.
And an older adult is different again. So we have this massive bias in the data. We're designing learning spaces based on the biology of 20-year-olds, and we have no idea if those rules apply to a first grader.
That seems like a gigantic gap.
It's huge. And it's not just age, it's gender, too. The participation was actually pretty balanced, roughly 50-50 male and female. But the review points out that none of the studies analyzed the results by gender.
They didn't check to see if men and women reacted differently.
No, they just pooled all the data together. And we know from other research that men and women often have different sensitivities to things like temperature.
So maybe women learn better in slightly warmer rooms and men in cooler ones.
It's entirely possible. Or maybe one group is more visually stimulated than the other. We just don't know because no one checked. It's a huge missed opportunity.
So we have messy data, a biased sample. What about the tech itself? We're just praising the EEG.
There's a physical limitation, though. The fixed student problem. In these studies, the EEG setups were mostly stationary. You're wired up, you have to sit still.
But real learning isn't like that. You move, you talk to people, you walk to the whiteboard.
Exactly. The tech forces a very sedentary, stiff type of learning. We're not capturing the biology of active, collaborative learning.
And I noticed no fMRI, the big donut machine that gives you deep brain images.
Yeah, but you can't really build a classroom inside an MRI machine.
Right. It's tight. It's incredibly loud.
It's claustrophobic. You can't simulate a natural learning environment when you're strapped inside a magnetic tube. So we're missing that deep brain data.
Okay, so let's bring this all home. We have a field that is super promising, but it's still kind of messy. We have proof that our physical space changes our biology, but we don't have the perfect blueprint yet.
We've identified the signal. We know architecture matters biologically, but we're still tuning the radio to get a perfectly clear picture of how to apply it.
So what's the so what for the listener? Most of us aren't building a school. We're just trying to work in a cubicle.
You can absolutely use this. You don't need to wait for the perfect study. The direction of the arrow is clear.
Give us the cheat sheet.
Okay, first, your visual field. If you're doing focused work, try to introduce cool tones, blues, greens, get a blue piece of art, change your desktop background.
And the nature thing.
If you can, move your desk so it faces a window with a view of a tree. That view is a biological reset button for your attention. If you can't, get a plant. A real one.
And watch the temperature.
Crucial. If you're feeling sluggish, don't just grab more coffee. Check the thermostat. If it's too warm, your brain is overheating. You might not be tired. You might just be thermally compromised.
I love that phrase, thermally compromised. It gives you a sense of control over your space.
It validates what we all intuitively feel. Our environment isn't just a backdrop. It's an active character in our story.
Before we go, I want to leave everyone with a thought. Based on that VR trend, more and more learning is going to happen in virtual spaces, right? The metaverse, remote VR classrooms.
It's coming fast.
So if researchers are already using VR classrooms because they're so controlled, are we eventually just going to go to school in them? And if we do, are we designing those spaces for the human brain? Or are we just designing them for the human eye?
That is the question. If I build a virtual classroom, do I need to put virtual windows in it?
Exactly. Does seeing a digital brick wall comfort the brain the same way a real one does?
If the brain reacts differently to a virtual wall, which it probably does, then the future of education might look very strange. Maybe we don't need rooms at all in the metaverse. Maybe we learn best floating in a void of soft blue light.
It's a wild thing to think about. Are we just building virtual things that look like old schools out of habit? Or will we eventually build spaces that are actually optimized for our neurology?
Until we get better data, we're just guessing. But it's going to be a fascinating ride to watch.
Well, on that note, we'll let you get back to your hopefully cool-toned and well-ventilated environment. Thanks for diving in with us.
Always a pleasure.
We'll catch you on the next deep dive.